We finally have our highly anticipated US Open final rematch between Aryna Sabalenka and Coco Gauff. The two will now play for a spot in the 2024 Australian Open final. Aryna will be the heavy favorite as she's been the most dominant player of the tournament thus far, but can Coco Gauff go 2 for 2 and knock down the defending champion here in Melbourne? I'll preview this matchup before giving my ultimate predictions of who I think will advance to the Australian Open final. Hi, my name is Christian Bassnight and welcome back to my YouTube channel. First, looking at the head-to-head between Coco and Aryna, Coco leads it 4-2. She also won their last meeting, of course, in the US Open finals, which by a score of 2-6, 6-3, 6-2. Sabalenka's last victory over Gauff was at the Indian Wells quarterfinal in 2023, where she dominated the American 6-4, 6-love. Sabalenka has breezed through the tournament thus far, playing 2.5 hours less than Gauff has. Aryna's average opponent ranking stat is a bit skewed because her fourth round opponent, Amanda Anisimova, was ranked outside the top 400 prior to this tournament. Many have contended that Gauff's path to the semifinal was actually far easier, as she didn't face a single seed en route to this last four stage. Looking at Coco's road to the semifinal up into the quarterfinal, Gauff had not dropped a set this tournament. She steamrolled her lesser experienced opponents like Alicia Parks and Magdalena Freck, but the last 8 matches against Kostyuk got very complicated. This match against Marta was the definition of winning ugly, which credit to Coco's coach, Brad Gilbert, was probably a proponent of that whole concept. Coco really could have lost this match in straight sets, to be honest. She was down 5-1 in that opening set, and I thought that was going to happen too when she faced that deficit, but she did manage to fight back and save multiple set points in the process to claim it in a tiebreak. This was very shaky and error prone from both these players, especially in the first 2 sets. Coco hit 10 winners to 42 unforced errors in the first 2 sets, which is unbelievable. She was over hitting the forehand a lot of times, just not really fully committing, and a lot of times like not hitting it precisely in the middle of her racket, her strings. So it was just ugly tennis, honestly, from both. Kostyuk honestly was the better player the first 2 sets, but you can tell this was her first slam quarterfinal, and the inexperience of her just being in this position clearly got to her with some of her shot selection decisions. Coco's serve was also very poor, and it's not like what we've really been accustomed to the entire tournament. She had a very low first serve percentage in those first 2 sets especially, and she also wasn't really hitting and going up after that first serve, which is something that we've been lauding her this year thus far, especially with her work with Andy Roddick, one of the best servers of the game. Coco, as I keep mentioning, played much better in the 3rd set. Her serve was firing much better, and her return was much stronger in that 3rd set. I think having this ugly match underneath her belt will definitely benefit Coco a lot here against Sabalenka should things get pushed deep in the semifinal match. Now, against Sabalenka, there's a lot of areas where Coco needs to improve upon from that Kostyuk match. First, of course, the serve, making sure that she hits it with decent pace, because if she does not, Sabalenka will be all over that like Kostyuk was a few points in the match. Also, the forehand, of course, we know it's not her strength, but it was notably weak against Kostyuk, especially like again in those first 2 sets. Just uncharacteristic misses, and then also too, whenever Kostyuk was consistently going after that forehand, you know, Coco would last about 3-4 decent ones before she would start, you know, shaking some or overall missing them. So just overall, that forehand stability and consistency needs to be on in this match against Aryna. The return, as I mentioned, especially on the forehand side, needs to improve. Coco missed far too many forehand returns, and then also too, the transition game was very poor from Gauff, which is something that we are not accustomed to from the 19-year-old. Usually she's solid on the volleys, but against Kostyuk, we experienced some hesitation from the American and being able to move forward and take those drive volleys out the air. Anyways, moving on to Aryna Sabalenka, she's been dominant, as I mentioned earlier. This tournament, she hasn't yet dropped a set, and in fact, she hasn't lost more than 5 games in a match to her 5 opponents thus far. She recently demolished her highest-ranked opponent, Barbora Krejcikova, 6-2, 6-3. Sabalenka's best match was probably the one against Amanda Anisimova, who played better than Krejcikova. Amanda also had a winning 4-1 head-to-head over Sabs prior to this match, so it was an excellent win for the Belarusian. Sabalenka really has been on fire this entire tournament, and it's very Ash Barty 2022 Aussie Open run reminiscent, where she just has been taking no prisoners out there on court. Her serve has been very effective, and I'm actually surprised that Qinwen Zheng has more than double her aces. Qinwen has 44, Sabalenka has 20 heading into the semifinals. However, Sabalenka, even though she's not hitting as many aces as we've normally been accustomed to seeing from her. She's been able to back up that first serve effectively with the 1-2 punch and just getting opponents on the defensive right from the get-go due to those solid serves. Her forehand has also been on fire, and that's kind of been a shot we look for to Sabalenka to see if she's playing well and if she's confident. If the forehand's on, pretty much all the other aspects of her game are on. And one thing I've been impressed by is her ability to really take a lot of balls earlier on the rise, which also takes time away from her opponents. Another important aspect for Aryna too is keeping a low on forced error count, which I think she's done beautifully throughout this tournament. She's had periods like in the second set against Krejcikova where she does spray some errors, but she's kind of reeled it in a little bit more. Maybe it's a game or so where she's off, but she's kind of snapped it back together where it doesn't impact the overall score. She's kept the matches pretty, straightforward, which I'm really pleased about. Now, the big question for this semifinal match is, will Aryna be able to rein it in when this does happen against Coco, who will be able to take more advantage, as opposed to Krejcikova, who threw in a lot of errors herself whenever Sabalenka was off her game. Now, talking about that US Open final and the tactical aspects and really what happened in that match, it was really not that high quality, to be totally honest. Sabalenka played solid in the first set and just simply overpowered Coco, who likely felt the occasion of playing in front of her home crowd another slam final. She really broke down that forehand from Gauff, who really was not accelerating properly through that shot. Sabalenka honestly could have ran away with this match in straight sets, but Coco's incredible fight and problem-solving capabilities got her through this in the end and kept her in the match. Aryna had a couple of early break chances in that second set, and when she was not able to capitalize on that, that also gave Coco added hope to where she could find a way to come through that match, and it also deflated Sabalenka as well. Gauff started to feel that forehand a little bit more, and I think she made this tactically intelligent decision to start looping it a little bit higher to that Sabalenka backhand to then get more of those backhand exchanges, which obviously favors Gauff, who has the best backhand on the tour. It was also a combination of the crowd and Coco's fight and tactical changes that really caused Sabalenka to wither away in that match. Sabalenka had the better ground strokes and better serve and really should have won, you think, but Gauff's mentality and physicality got her the W in the end. Now, talking about the mental aspects of this big occasion. First, this is the 6th consecutive slam semifinal appearance from Sabalenka, which is an unbelievable feat. I have to give her credit for that. The last time we've seen that many consecutive slam court semifinal appearances was from Serena Williams in 2017. So Aryna really is Serena's daughter. Anyways, being serious, the question still poses, does Sabalenka still have those semifinal shits about her? I don't know. I know she struggled early on in her last major semifinal against Madison Keys. She was somehow able to battle through and win that match, so maybe she exercised her demons there. Of course, we cannot forget the French Open and Wimbledon semifinals last year against Mukova and Jabeur, respectively, where Aryna shit the bed a little bit when it came time to close the match. So if closing time comes against Gauff or when things get tight, will Sabalenka have the mental calmness and resolve to finish this match out? I also think Gauff has the edge actually in being tested, because being tested and being pushed nearly close to defeat, honestly, almost as Gauff was, gives you the opportunity to analyze her game and understand what went wrong and how to fix that. Sabalenka really does not have a whole lot of that from this tournament, and that's a good thing because she's been so on point. But when she eventually loses her mark a bit, will she know exactly what to do to get herself out of that rut? I don't know. Sabalenka wasn't tested at all against Krejcikova because the Czech just played a poor match and Aryna was too solid, but Sabalenka did show some weaknesses in that encounter, and I think a player like Coco can take advantage of that. That said, if Coco played like how she did against Kostyuk in those first 2 sets, Sabalenka honestly could have double bageled her, and I'm not even exaggerating, to be honest. I also think there's going to be less tension on Gauff's part coming into this match because she knew that she was kind of a little bit close to being bundled out of the tournament against Kostyuk, who really pushed her deep. Also, Sabalenka said that she's going to be gunning for revenge from that US Open Finals loss, which is a good thing if you're an Aryna fan, but because it shows that your girl is determined to get her lick back. But also, there is more pressure on her to get that win over Gauff. The US Open Finals loss was extremely difficult for Aryna, so having that mental pressure of, I gotta beat her again because I don't want to go down 5-2 in this head-to-head, and I don't want to lose to her on two consecutive occasions at the slams, that can be tough for a player like Sabalenka. I also think it's important to mention the crowd dynamics. The crowd played a big role in that US Open final result, as they were heavily behind Gauff, as they should have, as she was the home favorite, the American. I did think that they were a little bit out of line with doing stuff like cheering loudly for Aryna's double faults and poor errors. I think the Australian Open crowd will be much more neutral and perhaps a little bit in favor of Sabalenka as the defending champion, which will help Aryna in the tense moments here. Sabalenka chiefly needs to maintain composure when things do get tough in this match, which they likely will. Coco has not been playing her best tennis this tournament, but she got to the semifinals for a reason. She's able to mix things up against opponents, and she likely will do the same against Aryna as she did at the US Open final last year. That game style could be very tricky for the Belarusian, and there's a reason why Gauff has that 4-2 head-to-head advantage over Sabalenka. Coco will be the best mover that Aryna has faced by far this tournament, and there's the added dynamic of having to face a player that just gets so many balls back in play. I think to combat that, Sabalenka definitely needs to move forward, as she's been doing successfully throughout the tournament. On the flip side, of course, Aryna will be the best server and ball striker Coco has faced thus far by a considerable margin here. Kostrick has some firepower from the ground, but the Ukrainian made some baffling shot selection choices to let Coco off the hook. Sabalenka's power is definitely much more harnessed than Marta's. Giving my final prediction, I will have Sabalenka take this one in 3 sets. I picture Sabalenka starting off strong like she did at the US Open before Gauff changes things up and pushes her like in that second set and take that second set. And then in the third set, I picture Sabalenka regrouping and ultimately bouncing back stronger and taking it home. First, I had Sabalenka taking this one in 2 sets because in my mind she was just unbeatable, but then I went back and watched that critique of a match, and I was a little bit humbled from that, as seeing as though Krejcikova simply was not playing that well. And you know, obviously Sabalenka's playing solid, but it made Sabalenka look better than maybe what she is playing like. I don't know what to say, but chiefly, as I keep reiterating, I expect Gauff to take better advantage of those moments where Sabalenka is off her game. Now, briefly touching on an advantage that I had not touched on upon this video thus far, the fact that this will be Sabalenka's, I think, 3rd or 4th night session match thus far. Meanwhile, all of Coco's matches thus far have been during the heat of the day nearbout. So adjusting to the conditions might be a challenge for Coco at first, giving Aryna the early advantage. I do think that Sabalenka is the best player of the tournament by a decent margin, and she honestly needs to go ahead and just take the second slam. But then again, too, Coco is also a deserving player, and if she brings the goods, she will beat Sabalenka if Sabalenka does not bring her best game as well. I think some of this match too will come down to the mental side of it, because whoever wins this match will be a heavy favorite to take it all, with Qinwen Zhang and Diana Yastremska being the other 2 semifinalists. Zhang is a solid player, but neither she nor Yastremska have been in this position of contending for a major title, and they just have both Gauff and Sabalenka have that experience that just simply cannot be matched. Anyways, that's all I have for this video. Let me know whether you agree with me that Sabalenka will take her revenge over Gauff, or do you feel that Coco will reach her 2nd consecutive slam final? Leave your picks in the comment section below, and subscribe and click the notification bell so you're notified whenever I post my women's final preview. Thanks for watching. I'm Christian Bass Knight once again, and I'll catch y'all on the next one.